I'm finally in the 3. This is kind of like an impromptu, I guess, review of the 3 now that I've had about a week to drive it, or even 2 weeks. I think it was 2 weeks actually. Overall impressions of the 3, I keep calling the car a cheat code, which it actually is. It requires you to think faster in a sense, more than how much you would need to react than a normal car, but at the same time, you have instant acceleration compared to, driving an automatic or driving, a gasoline operated vehicle, whereas if you're driving a Tesla, you have instant torque. You technically do not have a transmission, you only have one gear. As soon as you step on the accelerator, you shoot forward. That's the one thing I love about Tesla. One thing I don't like about Tesla, or actually this model in general, the Model 3, and it keeps happening when I drive this car during the nighttime. I'm so used to seeing the dashboard in front of me, in front of the steering wheel. There's nothing in front, I can only see the screen. So that's one thing I don't like about the Model 3. Another thing I like about the car is that it's very simplistic. There's one thing that Tesla did right, it's designing the dashboard. It is so simple. I know I'm the only one, but I like how the screen protrudes outwards, whereas the Model S, actually the screen is built into the dashboard. For some reason, I just like the screen protruding outwards. I don't know why, it's just me. Because I've asked several other people, including my family, and they all said they like the Model S better in general, but they like the finish of the Model 3. Another con, I know I'm going back and forth, but I'm talking about it as I'm thinking off the top of my head right now. Another thing is the blind spot, is that if you have the seat setting all the way at the very bottom, I'm 5'7.5", with the seat on the lowest setting. When I'm looking at my blind spot is actually where the seat pillow cushion is, so I have to elevate myself actually before I change lanes. Other than that, I think that's the only con that I have. I really love how you can adjust the regenerative braking either on low or standard. I have mine on standard, but that's if I'm not driving anyone. If I'm driving my family, to them standard regenerative braking is actually too strong. But for me, I like it on standard because then I don't need to step on the brakes at all. However, I've tested this before. If you're going 65 and above, even on standard regenerative braking, it doesn't work as efficiently. You have to be at most 45 miles per hour or slower for regen braking to actually work on standard mode. That's one of the other things that I love or hate about regen braking, is that the different either chill or standard has its ups and downs. Overall, definitely a driver-centric vehicle to some extent because there's no distractions. Literally, there is nothing but the steering wheel right here and the screen is right here. There's nothing, right, that could distract you from driving. Another thing is the autopilot. Now, for this Tesla, we actually did not go with the full autopilot option because there was no need. It's already good enough that it can actually self-steer in its own lane. Because I had the full auto steer option in the test-driven vehicles, being the dumb one, I did not know the basic autopilot function did not include lane change. The first 2 times I used it, I literally was signaling for like 20 seconds and was waiting for the vehicle to lane change by itself, but then I was told the basic autopilot function does not have lane change. Another feature that I really like actually is the stopping mode for driving. Right now my foot is actually on the accelerator and not on the brake. In doing so, when the vehicle comes to a complete stop, the electronic handbrake or the parking brake will actually engage. The whole time I've been driving, other than turning from the expressway onto this street, I have been just slowing down by letting out the accelerator and letting the car coast down to a complete stop, because as soon as the car comes down to 2 miles per hour, 1 miles per hour, or 1 mile per hour, the car will actually do a complete stop and then the parking brake will activate. So that's another thing I love about this car. In general, I love the way the car runs, but I don't love the car, if that makes sense, because for me, driving a Tesla is basically driving a modern day version of a manual transmission vehicle. And 2, I just need an engine. I say the Tesla is basically like a modern day manual transmission vehicle is because with manual transmission, you can choose your gear, and based on the gearing, you can actually let the engine brake for you when you want to slow down. But obviously, you have to step on the brakes or keep downshifting to have the vehicle come to a complete stop. Whereas with a Tesla, if you have the regen braking on standard, and then you also have stopping mode on hold, you pretty much let the battery slow down for you and come to a complete stop. And when you're accelerating, you only have one gear. You just keep shooting forward. Whereas, in automatic nowadays, unless you're in sports mode and the transmission is tuned to be in sync with sports mode, and you have a dual clutch transmission or a DCT, I don't know if that's what it's called in the BMW iDrive system. Unless if you have a sports vehicle or a performance vehicle that has a good enough transmission and a good enough tune and a good enough ECU, it will not shoot out as fast as a Tesla will. I know my brain was all over the place. Even as a base Model 3, this one is not the dual motor, it's the single motor rear-wheel drive. As far as I'm concerned, I believe the dual motor is all-wheel drive. Correct me if I'm wrong. I only know about the single motor because my friend told me about it, and because the way how it drives when I accelerate and go through a turn, it does not feel like it's an all-wheel drive platform. So I know for a fact that it's a rear-wheel drive platform. It's still a really fun car to drive as long as you know what you're doing. Again, we call it a cheat code, or at least I call it a cheat code, because you can accelerate however fast you want. You can get the acceleration whenever you want. That's really helpful when you can anticipate the speed and anticipate the acceleration. It's the smartest and the most technologically advanced vehicle on the road to this day, but only if you know what you're doing. Let me know in the comments down below if you have a Model 3, if you enjoy or are so-so about your own Tesla, what your thoughts are about the Model S and the Model X. I've driven all of them. I'm pretty sure I've driven the dual motor versions of all three as well. I don't think I've driven a single motor. No, wait, I think I have, but I just don't remember which one. But I've driven all three Tesla vehicles. Leave in the comment section what you guys think. This is my review of the three, and unfortunately I was not able to get all of the perspectives inside the car because I only have one camera and I'm using the wide angle lens on my iPhone, which means that I couldn't pause it and do like B-roll and whatnot. So this is a very amateur version of a review. Hope you guys enjoy it, and I will see you guys later.